While tapping into India's billion-plus consumer marketplace tempts many global businesses, the failure rate is equally high. Marketing expert Dheeraj Sinha shares insight on how to increase your chances. Why do you think, Dheeraj, so many companies misunderstand how to build growth in India?
At one level, we were all sent on a wild goose chase. So numbers like 350 million middle class, 500 million people below the age of 25 set up a certain sense of euphoria. But if you go back to the census of India, which is the most authentic data source, you realize that 600 million people in India do not have access to toilets and drinking water. And there are only 57 odd million people who own cars. So the size of the middle class cannot really be 300 million. What has happened is that in this chase of a 1 billion population, companies have set themselves up against steep targets. So you've gone as a telecom company and planted towers in all kinds of places in the country in the desire to reach a 1 billion population. The cost of infrastructure has been huge, and a lot of companies in the top 10 in India are reeling under huge debt. The other thing which has happened is that we've invested in products and services which have tried to appeal to the really bottom end consumer. And the consumer in the last 2 decades have moved their cheese. They have upgraded and they want sexier products. Whereas the investment has been made on basic products and services like the smallest cars or the cheapest phone. Whereas the consumer is wanting a sexier car, the consumer is wanting a sexier smartphone. So I think there's been a targeting at that level, and that needs to get calibrated.
Now, as you talk about how local businesses in India thrive by building their own infrastructure, Tata, for instance, has a stake in automotive and steel industries. Tell me, how can foreign businesses equally spread their influence?
I think across the board, companies which are being successful in a relatively longer run have a slight purpose built into their game. When you're coming to a market like India or even a market like China, you cannot have a view to come in and skim the opportunity. You need to have a view to come in and build the opportunity. For example, I was in a conference about an emerging state in India, and there was a CEO from a DTH company speaking there, and he was complaining about lack of electricity in that market and why therefore nobody was watching television and his average revenue was going down. But perhaps he should have experimented sort of clubbing in a solar cell with his DTH connection, right? So that's the kind of approach you need to have to a market like India, where you help consumers build their own infrastructure, where you help add back to the society a bit.
Right, but then there's regulatory roadblocks, right, that abound in a number of industries. Just take the telecom sector. Patronage in political circuits won't necessarily work for foreigners in these cases, or does it?
I mean, my sense is that with the new government in the saddle and with the whole Make in India policy being articulated very clearly, I think a lot of the patronage bit is going down, and it's increasingly possible in India to do business basis the merit of what you're doing to the marketplace. Having said that, I mean, my firm belief is that the success of India is more people driven than policy driven. So whatever India has made of itself thus far is because of the sheer dint and ability of individuals and the personal enterprise of people to beat the odds and make things possible. And I think that's what's going to take India to the next level. Policy, as far as concerned, is getting better. It will not get dramatically better in a very short period of time because it's a huge machinery which needs to change. But the efforts are in the right direction, I must say.
Do you worry in any way that, as much as the current administration is actively encouraging entrepreneurship and foreign companies to come in, as an Indian, do you ever worry that that's going to hurt or limit the ability of native businesses to own a lion's share of the profits that can be made in their own country?
I think most Indians don't think in a protectionist view. So, for example, if you look at the example of retail in India, I mean, the idea of modern retail and organized retail coming in and therefore spoiling the business of the mom and pop joints has been in conversation for a while. But the impact has been on the reverse. In fact, the mom and pop joints have taken up the opportunity to spruce themselves up. So, the neighborhood Kirana store today looks much more sexier, has a much better inflow of products and services, and has upgraded itself. So I would imagine that the enterprise of the individual is going to win over all the odds in this country. And I think people are largely looking at growth, whichever way it comes in. So when IKEA comes in tomorrow and sets up shop in the country, it's going to give employment to people, it's going to give business to lots of ancillary products, and people are going to leverage that and be happy with it.
As this maturation takes place in the marketplace, are you seeing investments and stakeholder interest in local entities also equally maturing?
Yes, because suddenly there is funds available for ancillary industry to produce material that goes into the bigger industry. I mean, one example is potato farming and how PepsiCo as a company has invested in potato farming in many villages in northern India, and those villages are today far more prosperous than they were about 2 decades ago. So people are seeing the benefits of this kind of growth, and they're open to it. They would welcome it.